It was 7:26 on a Thursday. I remember that because the Waze app had just said, "You'll arrive at your destination at 7:42." Right before the flashing red and blue lights lit up my rear view mirror. I was doing the speed limit. Hadn't rolled through a stop. No busted taillight. But I pulled over anyway. Left turn signal on, slow brake, tires easing onto the shoulder of Route 44 just past the Shell station. I had an iced coffee in the cup holder, condensation bleeding into a napkin. It was still cold. That's how I know it hadn't been long. The officer came up on the driver's side, and I did the usual. Windows down, hands on the wheel, polite half smile. "Evening, sir. Do you know why I pulled you over?" I shook my head. "Honestly, no idea." "License and registration, please." Standard. So I reached for my wallet, gave him my ID, Michael James Heller, and the registration for my beat-up Corolla. The car's 12 years old, paint sun-faded, AC barely works unless I jiggle the knob just right. It's mine, though. The officer took the documents and walked back to his cruiser. I figured, okay, maybe someone with a similar plate had a violation, a check and release kind of stop. But he was gone longer than usual, a lot longer. 12 minutes, I counted. I took another sip of coffee, now warm and bitter. That anxious kind of bitterness that settles in your chest when nothing technically bad has happened. Yet. When he came back, his whole energy had shifted. "Mr. Heller," he said, resting a hand near his holster, "I need you to step out of the vehicle." "I'm sorry, what?" "Please step out of the car." I stared at him. I wasn't being difficult. I was genuinely confused. "Officer, did something come up? Did I miss a notice or—" He cut me off. "There's an active warrant tied to your name. Step out, hands where I can see them." My blood went cold. A warrant? What the hell? I work it at a regional hospital. I haven't had a parking ticket in 5 years. Still, I followed instructions. Opened the door slowly, got out. Hands up, palms out. Like I'd seen in movies, only this wasn't fiction. He patted me down, searched the vehicle, made me sit on the curb while he radioed dispatch. And that's when it all started unraveling. 38 minutes later, I was sitting on a hard plastic bench at the local precinct. Not in a cell, thankfully, just the intake room. But my phone was confiscated. I wasn't free to leave. The warrant? It was for auto loan fraud. A dealership in Riverside County claimed Michael Heller had purchased a brand new Ram 1500 4 months ago under false pretenses, signed paperwork, ran a credit check, drove it off the lot, then defaulted on payments after a month and vanished. Only I had never even been to Riverside County. The detective, a stocky guy in his early 50s with a sandpaper voice and zero patience, slid a manila folder across the table. "Recognize this?" Inside was a loan agreement with my name, date of birth, and social security number. My real information. My signature, or someone trying to mimic it, not quite right. "No," I said, my throat dry. "That's not mine." He flipped the page. "What about this?" A copy of my driver's license. Except it wasn't a copy. It was a duplicate. Same photo, same number, different issue date. That's mine, but I didn't request a replacement." He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "You sure about that?" "Yes. Why would I buy a truck I've never seen from a dealership 3 hours away?" He didn't answer, just watched me. Then he asked, "You got a brother, Mike?" That stopped me cold. "Yeah." I blinked. "Eli. Eli Heller, right? Born May 21st, 1991. Yeah, why?" He slid another sheet forward, surveillance stills. Fuzzy, but clear enough to make out the person signing the forms. Medium build, ball cap, hoodie, but I knew that walk, the slight forward lean, the way he pushed his elbow out when writing. That was Eli. I felt like I was watching a slow-motion crash. Let me back up. I hadn't spoken to Eli in over a year. We're not estranged exactly. We just drifted. That slow, uneven kind of distance that happens when one sibling levels up and the other doesn't. I work in IT support. It's not glamorous, but it's stable. Benefits, 401k, all that. I rent a 2-bedroom in a quiet part of Pasadena. Nothing fancy. I eat rotisserie chicken, pay my bills on time, and go hiking on weekends when I remember to touch grass. Eli's different. Always has been. He's the kind of guy who makes fast friends, fast money, and fast exits. He's driven Uber in 4 states, sold vintage vinyl on Etsy, tried launching a beard oil brand that failed in 6 months. For a while, he stayed with me after his last breakup. Said it was temporary. 4 weeks turned into 9. He'd cook sometimes, always left dishes in the sink. We'd watch old movies, crack jokes, reminisce, but one day he left while I was at work. No note. Just gone. Took the guest room sheets with him for some reason. That was 15 months ago. I hadn't seen him since. The detective let me go eventually. No charges filed. Not yet, anyway. He said they'd look into it further, but made no promises. My identity was still tangled in the system. My credit? Probably wrecked. The next morning, I took off work and drove to the DMV. That's when the second stomach punch landed. According to their system, I had requested a duplicate license last December, in person, at a location in Riverside. ID verified by birth certificate and utility bill. What utility bill? I asked. The clerk pulled it up. SoCal Gas. Statement dated November 28th under your name. I couldn't believe it. Eli must have gotten his hands on an old copy, or worse, forged one. Can I see a copy, Bo? I asked. She shook her head. Not unless you file a fraud claim and request an internal investigation. That'll take several weeks. It felt like falling into a hole I didn't know existed. And every agency I called, credit bureaus, banks, the dealership, gave me a different number to dial, a different form to fill. Meanwhile, my real life was still moving. My job expected me back. Rent was due. Groceries didn't buy themselves. And beneath all that logistical noise was the ache I couldn't shake. My brother did this. He knew my social, my handwriting, my rhythms. He chose to do this. I didn't call him. Not yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I dug. I pulled my free credit report. There it was, an auto loan for $48,700 under Mike Heller, initiated last winter. Flagged delinquent. There were other oddities too. A Capital One card I didn't open. A cell plan with T-Mobile. All in my name. All opened sometime after Eli vanished. I remembered then, he'd borrowed my mail key once, said he dropped his vape behind the dresser and used my keys to wedge it out. I hadn't thought twice. Now I did. Back in my apartment, I stood staring at the blank TV screen for a long time. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room. I tried to picture the version of Eli who would do this to me. And the worst part? I could. I finally texted him. You alive? No answer. I tried again the next day. I need to talk. Urgent. Still nothing. So I did the one thing I hadn't wanted to do. I called our mother. Mom lives in Redlands, about an hour east. Small house, lots of plants, and a fridge full of expired yogurt she refuses to throw out. Michael, she answered on the first ring, chipper as ever. You never call. Everything okay? I hesitated. Not really. Are you sick? You sound tired. Are you eating enough? Mom, I said, do you know where Eli is? Silence. Why? I think he's in trouble. Or I am, because of him. More silence. Then, he's been staying in San Bernardino with a friend. Which friend?
Jeremy, I think. That boy with the tattoos. He was over a few times last year. Don't you remember him? I didn't. Do you have an address? I asked. I might, she said slowly. But Michael, whatever's going on, just remember, he's your brother. I didn't answer that. She gave me the address. A rundown complex near 19th and E Street. And that night, I made the drive out. Not because I wanted to fight. Not even because I wanted to understand. I just needed to see him. To look him in the eyes. And ask why. The place looked like somewhere people went when they were trying not to be found. 3 stories of peeling stucco, rusted balconies, and satellite dishes pointed in all directions like confused antennas. No clear unit numbers. The outdoor stairwell smelled like burnt grease and cheap weed. I parked on the street, killed the engine. It was just past 9 at night. Dark enough for things to feel unsure. But not so late that knocking on someone's door would get the cops called on me. I took the stairs slowly, one hand trailing the chipped railing. 3rd floor, Unit 3F, according to the address Mom gave me. There was music playing faintly behind one of the doors. Bass-heavy, muffled. I knocked once. Light. Waited. Nothing. Knocked again, firmer this time. After a few seconds, the lock clicked. The door cracked open just wide enough to reveal Eli's face, half in shadow, half lit by the blue wash of a TV behind him. He looked older. Not dramatically, but the kind of older you see in the eyes first. "Mike?" he said, squinting, like he genuinely couldn't believe it was me. I didn't say anything. He stepped out and shut the door behind him. There it was, no invite in, no, "Hey man, come on in," just a wall, a half-shielded expression. "You came all the way out here?" he asked, arms crossed. He was wearing an old hoodie, gray, faded black around the cuffs, and basketball shorts even though it was October. "You gonna ask me why I'm here?" I said, "or just keep pretending you don't already know?" He didn't flinch. "Mom told you, huh?" "No, the cops did." His mouth tightened, just barely, but it was there, a flicker of something between guilt and calculation. "Look," he started, "I didn't think it would—" "You didn't think," I cut in. "That's what you're going with?" He rubbed the back of his neck. His hand was shaking slightly. "Can we not do this out here?" he muttered. "People got ears." "So let's go inside." He paused. Then, "You're not going to hit me or anything, right?" I didn't laugh. Didn't even blink. "Open the door." The apartment was small and bare. Twin mattress on the floor. Cracked blinds. A second-hand coffee table with a chipped corner and ash stains. TV sitting directly on the floor, streaming some random Twitch channel muted. One other guy sat on a beanbag in the corner, glancing up. "This your brother?" he asked Eli. "Yeah," Eli muttered. "Give us a sec, Jer." The guy nodded, unplugged his phone from the wall, and stepped out with a shrug. The door clicked shut behind him. For a moment, it was just quiet. Eli sat on the edge of the mattress. I stayed standing. "All right," I said. "Start talking." He didn't launch into a speech. Eli never did. He was the kind of guy who avoided sentences with beginnings and endings, just floated from beat to beat, hoping no one would call him on it. "It wasn't supposed to screw you over," he mumbled. "I thought I could keep up with payments. Then things got tight. That's all." "You used my name, Eli. You forged my signature. You opened lines of credit with my info. I needed a car. Then get a car. Don't steal one and make me the fall guy." He didn't meet my eyes, picked at a frayed string on the edge of his hoodie. "You know what it's like, man," he said quietly. "People see you, they trust you. Good credit, stable job, nice apartment. I walk in somewhere, they assume I'm going to bounce before the ink's dry. I just needed one break." My fists curled at my sides. "So you stole mine." Eli looked up, jaw clenched. You always had it easy. That line, it hit something old and bitter in me. Easy, I repeated. You think waking up at 6 every day, working overtime, clipping coupons, and barely making rent is easy? You got a job you like, Beto, he said. Benefits, a future. You could have had that too. He laughed, short, bitter. Nah, not with my record. And there it was, that unspoken wound between us. Eli had a couple of misdemeanors on file. Nothing violent, just stupid stuff. Petty theft at 19, disorderly conduct after a bar fight at 23. Job apps always asked about criminal history. Apartments did too. He was always 2 steps behind, and he'd stopped trying to catch up. Instead, he piggybacked. On me. I sat down. Not because I wanted to stay, but because my knees felt weirdly soft, like my body had finally caught up to the mental weight. Do you know how close I was to getting arrested? I asked. You could have blown up my entire life, Eli. I wasn't trying to hurt you, but you did. He didn't answer, just leaned forward, elbows on knees. I'll fix it, he said. How? I don't know. I'll figure something out. That's not good enough. He looked at me then, really looked. I'll return the truck. I'll call the bank. Say it was me. And say you impersonated me. That's a felony. I don't care. That surprised me. I waited. I've been crashing here 2 months, he said. Jeremy lets me stay because I cover Wi-Fi. I do odd jobs, day labor stuff, but it's not steady. Then get steady. He looked down. I'm tired, Mike. So am I. We didn't fix anything that night. There was no magical resolution, no hug, no mutual forgiveness, but he gave me the keys to the truck, said it was parked in a garage down the block, that the dealership probably had a tracker on it by now. He said I could take it, turn it in, cut a deal. I didn't thank him. Didn't curse him either. I just left. The truck was there. Big, gleaming, barely used. A few fast food wrappers on the floor. One of my old air fresheners dangling from the rear view, the scent long faded. I drove it back to Pasadena in silence. The whole way, I kept wondering how long he'd planned it. How many passwords he still had access to. How many pieces of my life weren't mine anymore. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. Report him? Cover it up? Try to fix it quietly? All I knew was this. I wasn't letting this go. Not this time. The dealership manager's office smelled like cheap coffee and legal threats. I'd made an appointment with their fraud department under the pretense that I was Michael Heller, because technically I was. But I didn't tell them the whole truth over the phone. Not yet. The woman who greeted me, Amanda, sharp suit, tired eyes, walked me through a beige hallway lined with framed certificates and photos of staff cutting ribbons at Chamber of Commerce events. The kind of place where everyone smiles a little too wide for the camera. Inside her office, she gestured to a vinyl chair that hissed when I sat down. We appreciate you coming in, she said, folding her hands on the desk. This situation has raised some flags. You've got our attention. That makes 2 of us. I slid the keys across her desk. To the truck? I nodded. I have it. It's in your name, isn't it? Or the bank's? Technically both. The lien's held by Mariner Auto Finance. We handle their contracts in-house. She glanced at the keys, then at me. You're saying you didn't buy it? That's what I'm saying. But you're Michael Heller. I am. Just not the one who signed those papers. She tilted her head. You're going to have to explain that. So I did. Not the whole brother thing. Not yet. Just the facts that mattered. I never stepped foot in their dealership until now. I never authorized or signed any loan documents. My identity had been used without my consent. I even pulled out the police report from the traffic stop.
It wasn't a formal criminal charge, but it listed the event and the fact that the warrant had been triggered erroneously under my name. Amanda read it twice, then pulled out a manila folder from a filing cabinet. "We've had one other case like this," she said quietly. "Couple years back. Different name, same setup." She placed a photocopy of the original loan application in front of me. There was the signature again. Close, but wrong. "I don't curl my R's like that," I said. "And I sure as hell don't write my sevens with a slash." "Do you know who might have done it?" I hesitated. "I have a suspicion," I said carefully, "but I'd rather not name names until I've spoken with a lawyer." Amanda didn't press. She was smart. She knew if they pursued fraud formally and the case unraveled in court, the dealership could be liable for not catching it sooner, for failing to verify identity properly. "We'll escalate this internally," she said, standing, "and flag the vehicle as recovered." "What does that mean for me?" "It means, for now, you're not on the hook for the loan, but I'd strongly advise you to put a freeze on your credit, file identity theft reports, and speak to an attorney." I nodded. She added, almost as an afterthought, "We're not pressing charges, for now, but if someone tries this again, they won't." She paused. "You sure about that?" No, I wasn't sure about anything anymore. Next stop was the police station. The detective from before, Clark, met me in interview room B. Same folding chairs, same linoleum floor. "You're back," he said, flipping open his notebook. "Let me guess. The truck?" "I returned it to the dealership I said. "They're flagging the account as fraudulent." He nodded slowly. "You pressing charges?" That question. It had been clawing at me for days. If I said yes, it would set everything in motion. An investigation, a subpoena, a court case, jail time for Eli. But if I said no, it might happen again. To me, to someone else. "I'm not sure yet," I said finally. "What happens if I do?" Clark leaned back in his chair. His body language changed. Less cop, more guy who's been doing this too long. "We open a formal case file. Take your statement, pull the dealership footage, trace IP addresses from the application. Once we confirm it was your brother, we charge him with identity fraud, grand theft auto, and loan fraud." "How long would he serve?" "Depends on the DA. First offense, maybe probation, but if he's got priors, he does, then he's looking at a year, maybe more." I looked at the wall. There was a clock ticking softly above the filing cabinet. The kind of office clock every public building has. White face, black frame, red second hand. I watched it turn a full circle before I spoke again. "Can I think about it?" "Of course, Clark said, "but not forever." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch, a half-empty beer sweating on the coffee table, while reruns played in the background with the volume low. I kept replaying it. Not the traffic stop, not the dealership, but Eli, the way he sat on that mattress, shoulders curled, face drawn. I tried to remember when things went off track between us. Was it when Dad left? When Mom had to take that second job? When Eli started skipping school, smoking in the garage, disappearing for hours? He was always louder, always messier. I was the safe one. The one who did chores without being asked, who got A's and held summer jobs and didn't complain. Maybe that's why I didn't see it coming. Because I thought doing everything right was enough to be safe. On Saturday morning, I got a letter in the mail from T-Mobile. A past due notice, account number I didn't recognize. Balance, $786.14. The address? Somewhere in Rialto, under my name. I nearly punched the wall. I grabbed my laptop, pulled every bank statement, credit report, and login I could find. Set up fraud alerts, changed passwords, placed freezes on all 3 credit. bureaus, called T-Mobile to dispute the account. Then I called Eli. Straight to voicemail, I texted, "I just got a T-Mobile bill. You still think this is going to stop?" "Nothing. I'm filing the report this week. I gave you a chance." Still nothing. Monday morning, I called Detective Clark. "I want to press charges." Silence on the other end. "You sure?" I swallowed. "Yeah, I'm sure." He didn't say good choice or finally. Just come in tomorrow to sign the formal statement. I expected guilt, but what I felt was clarity, not revenge, not even anger, just a drawing of the line. This wasn't about punishing Eli. It was about protecting myself. Because if I didn't, where would it end? The next car? A home loan? A criminal record? I had to stop pretending Eli was the same guy I used to play GameCube with in the basement. That guy hadn't existed for a long time. When I pulled up to the station, there was a car parked across the street I didn't recognize. Navy blue Civic, windows tinted, someone sitting inside. I looked again. It was Eli. He was staring straight ahead, not at me. His face was unreadable. I didn't wave. I didn't cross the street. I walked inside and started writing down everything he'd done. The courtroom was colder than it needed to be. Not just the AC, though that was blasting like the vent above the judge's bench had a personal grudge, but the atmosphere, the space itself, sterile, silent, vaguely humming, everything hard and echoey. I sat on the left side, second row, fingers clenched on the edge of the bench. The woman beside me, bailiff said her name was Cheryl. She looked about 60, kept dabbing at her nose with a tissue. Her son was here too, apparently. Different case. Same hour. When they finally called State of California versus Elijah Heller, it didn't feel real. Not until I saw him walk in, wrinkled button-up, court-appointed lawyer at his side, hair slicked like he'd tried, a man attempting to pass as cleaned up. He looked right at me, but he didn't nod, didn't blink, just looked. Filing the charges wasn't impulsive. I hadn't done it in anger. It took me 6 days after I saw him parked outside the station. 6 days of debating whether maybe that was him trying to apologize without saying it. That if I gave him one more chance, he'd own it, make it right. Instead, I got another letter, different account. This time from some payday loan service in Bakersfield. He was still doing it, even after I told him I was pressing charges, even after the truck was returned, even after he knew what it was costing me. So I followed through, made the calls, gave the statement, provided the dealership video stills, signed affidavits, pulled credit reports, forwarded every bill. Detective Clark said the DA moved unusually fast, said it was probably the combination of dealership pressure and a paper trail, so airtight it whistled. They charged Eli with identity theft, auto loan fraud, credit fraud, forgery, possession of falsified documents. It wasn't 3 to 5 years like I feared. But it was bad. In the courtroom, the public defender tried. He really did. Argued that Eli wasn't a hardened criminal, that he was desperate, that he wasn't living high off the hog, just scraping by, that the truck was returned, that the accounts could be settled. Then he asked for diversion, said Eli would accept counseling, restitution plans, community service. The judge looked unimpressed. Then they asked me to speak. I didn't want to, but I stood. Walked to the podium with knees I didn't fully trust. Took a breath, then another. And then I looked at Eli. He didn't flinch. "I never thought I'd be here," I said. "I always believed, deep down, that no matter how far apart we drifted, we'd never become strangers. Not like this." My voice shook. I hated that. But the person who did this to me, who stole my name, my credit, my life, That wasn't just desperation. That was a choice. I looked down at the yellow legal pad on the podium. I hadn't written anything, just drawn a circle with my pen over and over until it bled through. I wanted to believe it was temporary, a mistake, something you'd fix when you came back to yourself. But you didn't come back. You doubled down. I looked back up. And if the only way to make it stop is this, then I'm here for it. I sat back down. My hands felt like they didn't belong to me. Eli didn't say anything. He was offered a chance, but he didn't take it. Just stood there, jaw set, eyes forward. The judge spoke for 3 minutes, said things about rehabilitation, trust, documentation, violations of familial bonds, then handed down the sentence: 1 year in county jail, 2 years probation, mandatory financial restitution, mandatory therapy, credit restitution to begin within 6 months of release. It wasn't cathartic. It wasn't triumphant. It just was. Afterward, outside the courthouse, I waited. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Some part of me still hoping he'd turn and say something before they took him through the sally port. But he didn't. The bailiff cuffed him gently. One hand. No drama. Eli glanced over once, and I swear, for a split second, he looked sorry, but it was gone before I could be sure. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. People think big events echo, that they leave noise in their wake, but this was just paperwork. So much paperwork. I met with credit specialists. I filed affidavits. I froze and unfroze and refroze my credit so many times I lost track. I paid late fees I didn't owe just to buy peace. I changed passwords on accounts I'd had for a decade. I pulled every scrap of documentation and filed it in color-coded folders. Red for legal, blue for financial, green for identity. It was like cleaning up after a flood in a house where the roof still leaks. Mom called twice. The first time, she left a voicemail. "I'm not mad at you," she said. "I know this was hard." The second time I picked up, she cried, quietly, said she wasn't sure what to do, said she loved us both. I told her I knew, but I didn't have advice. Because what do you do when one son presses charges against the other? There's no Hallmark card for that. 3 weeks later, I found a package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a shoebox and a note. Didn't know if I'd get a chance to say it. You were always better than me, not because you had it easier, but because you never ran. I'm sorry I made you. E. Under the note, a set of Polaroids. Us, at Dad's lake house. Aged 9 and 7, riding bikes, smiling, covered in dirt and mosquito bites. I hadn't seen those photos in 20 years. I sat down on the carpet and just stayed there. Not crying, not angry, just still. The day Eli got out, I was back at work. That morning, I sat at my desk, pretending to troubleshoot a frozen EMR terminal while my stomach turned over in slow, quiet waves. I wasn't even sure why. He wasn't coming to my door. Not after everything. But knowing he was out, knowing he could walk into a gas station or a grocery store or anywhere else and use a name again, mine or his, made my chest feel like it had wires in it. I tried to lose myself in routine, in passwords and Wi-Fi resets and a burrito I didn't finish. But just after 6:30, my phone buzzed. Blocked number, voicemail left. I listened with headphones, sitting in my parked car in the hospital garage. His voice was low, quiet. "Hey, I'm out. I won't bother you again. If there's any part of you that still wants to understand, I'll be at Manny's, same place, tomorrow night. If you don't come, I'll get it." Click. Manny's was a diner off the 210, Strip mall place with booths that had permanent mustard stains and an old jukebox nobody used anymore. We used to go there after Eli's court-ordered counseling sessions when we were younger. Him with a chip on his shoulder, me with half a grilled cheese. The kind of place where nothing changed because it never tried to improve. Like it knew its role and leaned in. I showed up 5 minutes early, not because I was excited, but because I didn't want him to think I'd debated it all day. He was already there. Corner booth, same side he always sat on by the window. One paper napkin torn into pieces on the table. A coffee in front of him, barely touched. He looked thinner, not in the good way. Jail thinned people differently, made their skin tight around the edges. When I slid into the opposite side, he looked up. Didn't smile. Didn't flinch either. "Wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "Wasn't sure I would." He nodded. Silence. Then,
"You look the same." "You don't."
He took that in. No argument. I looked around. Same waitress behind the counter. Same smell of fryer oil and burnt toast.
"You still stealing identities?" I asked. It came out flat, not even bitter. "No," he said. "You cured me of that. Glad I could help." He sighed, pressing a torn bit of napkin flat. "I know you didn't do it to be cruel." "I didn't do it to you," I said. "I did it for me." He looked at me like that distinction mattered more than he wanted to admit. "I deserved it," he said. "Yeah." More silence. Then, finally, he said something new. "I wasn't mad that you pressed charges." That surprised me. I was mad that it took you so long. I tilted my head. He went on. "I thought if I pushed hard enough, used your name, borrowed your life, you'd finally put the brakes on. I didn't think you'd actually let it keep happening. You wanted me to stop you." He nodded. "Why not just ask?" He laughed, bitter. "Asking for help never got me help. It got me a lecture. That's not fair." He looked up. "Maybe not, but it's how I felt." I sat back. It felt like something broke open then, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a window that hadn't budged in years finally gave a little with a nudge. He told me more than I expected, that he'd been couch hopping for months before the truck, that the only reason he found my social was from an old FAFSA form buried in one of Mom's junk drawers. That when he bought the truck, he honestly thought he'd make payments for 3 months and flip it to someone else before anyone noticed. "But you couldn't, could you?" He shook his head. "Got greedy, or stupid, or both." We talked until the coffee went cold, about old stuff. Dad's toolbox we broke when we were kids. The day I got my first laptop, and he said it looked like a metal briefcase of justice. The night our dog died, and he pretended not to cry, but couldn't stop sniffling. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something, like turning over soil you thought was dead and finding it still soft underneath. He slid a small envelope across the table. I didn't touch it. "What is it?" "Repayment. The start of it, anyway." "How much?" $200. "That won't even cover the overdraft fees." He smiled. "Baby steps." I let the envelope sit there. Didn't open it, but I didn't push it back either. I haven't heard from him in months now. Not directly. But Mom said he moved out to Sacramento, got a job at a second-hand parts warehouse. Said he's been showing up every day. Sober. On time. I'm not sure if I believe it, but I want to. I check my credit report once a week. Still clean. And the other day I got a card in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo. 2 kids on rusty bikes. Me in a baseball cap too big for my head. Eli sticking out his tongue at the camera. On the back, 3 words. Still your brother. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.